Hello and welcome back, adventurers. Today, let me tell you of the places and creatures that will trap you and chew you up if you are not careful. The Shadow Rift is a wasp-waisted chasm that runs from the southern border of Necropolis southwards between Keening and Falkovnia. The exact depth of the Shadow Rift remains subject of much debate, although it looks very much like a mist-filled chasm from the top of its sheer walls. The rift is not mere canyon or gorge. In truth, it represents an imperfection in the fabric of the Devon Plain. Should the mist ever part, however, the barrier which separates the rift from the rest of the Ravenloft would vanish. If that were to happen, the realm of the Arak would almost certainly anchor itself into place, much like the final piece of the jigsaw puzzle. Time passes at a different rate within the confines of the Shadow Rift. For every year that a traveler spends among the Arak, only a fortnight passes in the outside world. The reasons for this phenomenon remain unexplained, even to the Arak themselves, but many believe in the theory that this effect is somehow linked to the Obsidian Gate. The way to get into the domain is a mystery to most. That is not to say none had tried. A young Tipistani noble, Trevor MacClaw, commissioned a staircase to be built at the point where the East Timori Road ran into the Shadow Rift. The stairs eventually reached the mist below, but work halted when the laborers discovered that anyone who entered them vanished without a trace. The remains of the staircase still cling like a vine to the cliffside. However, I was assured that many paths between the surface and the Fey realm exist, although all are unsafe and many are only accessible with the right key. Only one is used with any regularity. This fracture leads into the southwestern Tempest, accounting for the high number of the Fey plaguing that area. That fracture appears as the cave, and those who pass through it lose all memory of doing so. While the fact that the journey has been made isn't forgotten, the details of the journey are. Inside the rift, perpetual twilight reigns. The eternal cloud of inky vapor prevents the sun from shining, and the realm's close ties to the plane of shadow smother most artificial light. The geography of the floor of this mysterious canyon ranges from hills and light forests to rugged and inhospitable swamps full of dangerous beasts. Without exception, scrub forests and dense underbrush cover the tops of stone plateaus and terraces. The Shadow Fae tells stories of mysterious structures and spectral creatures dwelling atop those plateaus. Whether or not this is true is difficult to say, but nearly all of the Shadow Elves believe that dark and dangerous things dwell atop those heights. Most of the northern rift is covered with an expanse of rolling hills, filled with swaying grassland and temperate forests. Here, the Arak have established their cities and built their culture. Little about the green lands sets them apart from the lands of the core, other than the swirling dark sky and the uncanny aliveness of not only plant life but normally inanimate objects. The southern rift is far less pleasant and hospitable than its northern counterpart. It is a place of rocky patlands, acrid swamps and dangerous beasts. The Obsidian Gate, which links the Shadow Rift with the dim plane of shadow, stands here. The stone downs are rough and rugged stone flats filled with chasms. They are shunned by most of the Arak, although some races of Auka's Shadow Elves and other Fey creatures still dwell here. Black Marsh on the south is a salty, almost toxic swamp. Few Arak dare to venture into this bubbling rising cluster of deadly plants and dangerous animals. It is said that Black Marsh drains hope and vitality from those who pass through it, replacing these emotions with despair until travelers simply lie back and let the mud close over them. Their shattered spirits rise from the marsh as ghosts to walk the earth, trying to ease their pain by draining life from the living travelers. In the easternmost regions of the southern rift, roughly halfway between the borders with Nova Vasa and Barovia, stands a spire of barren stone and varied scrub known as the Darkened Heights. At the very top of this peak, which rises some 1,500 feet above the thick waters of the Black Marsh, stands the Obsidian Gate. Overall, the whole Shadow Rift is a temperate realm, although the specific weather patterns tend to be influenced by which court is in power. When Lot, ruler of the Ancili Court, holds the Malachite Palace, the weather tends towards cool and dry, with occasional periods of cold, drenching rain. When his more passionate sister takes the throne, the weather is far more temperamental, alternated between hot, dry periods and violent storms. The environment of the Shadow Rift makes it a heaven for nocturnal creatures such as bats, wolves, and owls. Things like shadows, shadow mastiffs, shadow fiends, gloomstalkers, and other natives of the dim plane of shadow are also common enough in the Shadow Rift. Giant vermin, especially spiders, are also common. The Iraq seem to detest spiders and spider-like creatures. These creatures have been driven to the most isolated parts of the Stone Downs, but frequently bubble forth to bother the Iraq or escape to the surface. Also inhabiting these areas are Saw, or the undead. The Black Marsh is haunted by incorporeal undead, such as wraiths and vampiric mists, as well as the desperate spirits called gossamers. Undead shadows are understandably found everywhere, including areas of the Greenlands where the Sith are common. After Law was crippled by the Twilight, the Ancilicor tried to eradicate the Saw from the Stone Downs, but despite early success, the Saw have begun responding with greater cunning. Some fear that development is a sign that the Twilight is extending his influence beyond the Obsidian Gate once more. One final category worth noting are the Surfaceborn. This term encompasses those mortals who have found their way to the Shadow Rift, as well as those who have been brought by the Iraq themselves. Shadow Fae are well known for their fascination with the mortals. Stories abound of babies being stolen from cradles so that the Fae can raise them. Sometimes these mortals are allowed to live naturally, while others, usually those tempted into the service of the Ancilicor, are shadow-crafted. The Iraq twist these poor creatures into demented mockeries of previous forms, to better serve the purposes or aesthetics of their masters. Finally, changelings are created from mortals who willingly or unwillingly eat fairy food. The transformation is usually bestowed as a gift for those who particularly impress a Shadow Fae with their talents. The changeling's creator assigns it a task, which it performs with obsessive concentration and devotion for the rest of the eternity. Changelings are dull, passionless creatures interested only in their tasks. The same diversity is true of plants. A wide variety of night-blooming flowers and plants are found beneath the dark skies of the Shadow Rift. Curiously, however, a number of plants that would normally die without sunlight also thrive here. The woods and forests of Shadow Rift are especially thick with dangerous, carnivorous, and intelligent plants. Although their ferocity to mortals is unabated, they seem to not harm the Fae. I believe gardens full of blood roses tended by Alvin are not uncommon, and they are known to use lush weeds as guards. Other plants, unknown even to well-traveled druids, also grow in the Greenlands. Some are strange variants of mundane species like chestnut trees, whose fruit falls from the tree and rolls away on its own. Others are unknown outside of the rift. Shadow bunions, for example, a carnivorous plant that attacks mortals with nooses of inky blackness and throw their strangled victims onto the exposed roots for fertilizer. Another unique plant is the lotus tree that grows heavy, sweetly scented blossoms filled with sulfuric, addictive nectar. The nectar is quite popular among satyrs, nymphs, and Sidhe, and sleeping fae with lips and chin stained red by the nectar often surround the trees. Thank you so much for your time, patient listeners. I hope that armed with the knowledge of the Shadow Rift dangers, you will stay alive just a little bit longer. And as always, take care while crossing the mists.